Sean Clancy, I'm product manager with BLA, and the primary things I look after is hummingbird and mink coda for Australia and New Zealand. I guess some people think it's a dream job, and it actually is. I've been working for BLA since I was 23 years old, and I'm a little bit older than that now, and absolutely love it. I'm on the road a little less these days. I used to spend a lot of time towing the boat around. Now we're more structured in what we do there. A lot of desk work, unfortunately, but I do get to go to the States every year and go and visit the guys at Johnson Outdoors, Hummingbird, Mink coda, and do some pretty cool things with those guys, as well as touring around fishing tournaments and going and catching barra and bream and some estuary species. So it's not a bad gig. I think Hummingbird Mink coda now has really gone to the next level with the new range of mink codas. Things like drift modes, just changing the way guys fish offshore, but also changing the way estuary guys fish. And then with Hummingbird, Mega Live 2's been really well received out in the marketplace, and guys are catching plenty of fish with it, and that's what it's all about. And of course, we've always led the way with our side imaging technologies and that sort of stuff, which is still very important to a lot of fishermen out there. The great thing about the new stuff is the one boat network. So your mink coda talks to your hummingbirds, your raptors. If you've got raptors on the back of the boat, they talk. If you're right into downrigging, you get a Canon Optimum downrigger, and you can fully control that through the Hummingbird. So it's all just integrated, so the whole boat just talks to itself, and it just makes everything easier on the water. I really needed a boat to suit a lot of different applications. I still do a lot of on-water training where you're taking customers out, but I also do fishing-wise anything from estuary to offshore saltwater, tuna, and then freshwater Murray cod. So finding a boat to kind of do all that, as well as a good family boat, was quite a challenge. So what I've got's a Angler 590 built by Angler Boats up at Bundaberg in Queensland. There's a bit of history with the moulds and the hull. Originally it was a Yamaha Southwind mould, and then it went to the Southern Star guys, and then it went to Lewis Boats in New South Wales, and now it's found its way up to Bundaberg, Queensland. So from an offshore fishing point of view, I'm a real fiberglass kind of lover. I like a soft riding boat offshore. This boat's 2.3 metre beam, which is a lot beamier than a lot of boats these days for that length of boat, 5.9 metres long, 23-degree dead rise, and that's what gives me my soft ride. It's a very dry boat. So I put the boat on a Savage trailer. It's an I-beam Gel trailer. I went with just carpet bunks. I like the simplicity of carpet bunks. You don't have a lot of rattling down the road. It keeps it nice and steady. And then on the back, a Mercury 175 Pro XS, which those V6s are just next level. They're mid-range punch. It's just, there's nothing like them on the market. The total package weighs about 1.8 tonnes, so it's easily towed by any dual cab ute or anything that tows something reasonable, so there's no issues there. It's a standard brake trailer. I don't need electric brakes or anything, so again, it keeps things simple without going up to that next level. This is actually my first brand new boat, and I've had a lot of boats over the years. My first boat I got when I was about 12 years old, which is a little tinny, and I've just gone through everything, but this is my first brand new one. From a fishing point of view, I started, I guess, Dad was part of the Victorian Game Fishing Club, so we were going to Mallacoota, Bermagui, those types of places. When we were too young to go out and game fish, we'd be on the jetties catching trevally and mullet and bream and those sort of things, and then eventually get to go offshore and do a bit of game fishing and that sort of stuff. And then it evolved into estuary and freshwater trout fishing and that sort of stuff. But I really have always loved that saltwater fishing. I got really keen in the estuary side and the tournament side for a while there, and I still do a bit of that. But I really love offshore, and I don't mind using bait. I love bait fishing for gummy sharks and stuff like that. So it's a real mixture of lure fishing, surface fishing for kingies offshore, but I also love plastics on snapper and gummy sharks. I love bait fishing for gummies, so a bit of everything. So it's really hard to find the right boat to suit that, and also be a good family boat for the two boys and Jacqueline. One of the things we've done historically at BLA with our demo boats is put everything on them, and people get excited and let's add this, let's add that, and For me, I like things simple, and I'll only add the things I know I'm going to use. So the boat looks a bit full on behind you, but it's actually pretty simple and everything has its part. And one of the things I can do is, for instance, if I'm going out gummy fishing, I'll put the downrigger on, but otherwise that's not on the boat. If I'm offshore, the front sounder's off and the Megalive 2 pole's off, so that cleans that up. So it's a boat that is really fitted out with the exact gear that I need, just based off years and years of fitting out work boats, but also fitting out personal boats. It's kind of all come together with what I've put on the water. So being a 23-degree desorized boat, you really need trim tabs just to level things up. If I'm on my own, it'll behave differently to I've got a passenger. So you really need trim tabs. And the traditional type of trim tab actuation is just a couple of switches, and you never actually know what switch to, and you end up looking down and trying to figure it out. The great thing I love about the Dometic trim tabs, it's a dial. So if your boat's leaning that way, your behaviour is the same as if you were steering your wheel. You basically just turn the dial that way and it levels up. And there's little subtle clicks in the Dometic steering. There's little clicks, and I know if I've got a passenger, I get up and going and I click to the left 4 clicks, and that's the exact spot. So I don't even have to look down at it. It's right there. I just click it and I know exactly what it's going to do. So I've gone with Dometic XPA electric steering. So it's a basic electric steering, and it's actually using traditional steering and steering cable to actuate it. So the beauty of that is I've got a tilt helm, and it's a 3-turn lock to lock. So it's very sporty. When you get up and going, your movement's all this. From an offshore point of view, all you're doing is this. So I love that. It's very light, and it's a good option for people if they've got a mechanical boat and they want to something a bit nicer. It's just an easier changeover than pulling it all out and going to a hydraulic system. It's a simple matter of just bolting the XPA to the front of the motor, running some wires, and you're away. So from an electronics point of view, I've got an Apex 16 on the helm and an Explore 12 up the front. And that's all I really want. I don't want to add any more screens. One great thing about the Explore units is you've got the One Boat Network buttons down the bottom. So you can be on full screen Megalive, for instance. You want to have a quick look at a map. You just push one button, the map comes up. Push the other button, the Megalive comes back up. So you can actually get away with one screen up the front with an Explore product because of those One Boat Network buttons. So transducer wise, because I'm always changing transducers, as new technologies come out, transducers will change. So one of the things I did on the back of the boat is Sikaflex a black starboard, piece of black starboard there. So I can just screw into that, and if I'm changing transducers, I'm not affecting the hull itself. On the back, I've got 2 different side image transducers. I've got the Explore one and the Apex one, and I only run one at a time. So I've actually got the Apex one lifted at the moment, and I've done that because I need to get a clean reading past it for side imaging, because our side imaging goes all the way to the surface. If I had them both down, I'd get interference, it would block that signal. So one's always up, and then if I want to change, the other one comes up. In the hull, I've got an AirMar 175 high with a 20-degree angle. I was tossing up between the high and the high wide. The high wide will see a lot more fish, but your bottom contour information is going to be a lot more rounded off and inaccurate. So I wanted good high speed reading, and I wanted to be able to see little lumps as I was running quick. If there was a little reef, I'd see it on a high, narrow beam. If it was a high wide, I'd miss it. You wouldn't see it. So I went with the high, but it's personal preference with that sort of setup. I might even put a SS175 low on the other side and have the best of both worlds. One of the most nervous things I did in the fit up of this boat was fit that AirMar transducer. It's a 95mm hole through your hull, and you actually have no idea if you've found a good spot. So that's a very nervous moment, but I thought I knew was a clean spot. You've just got to look for any planing strakes in front of where you're choosing to put it. Make sure there's no planing strakes finishing in front of it and that sort of stuff. You need that clean water hitting that transducer to get a good reading. So I put it where I put it, and I'm getting flat out. The boat does about 80 Ks, and I get clean bottom reading at that speed. So I got it spot on, which was a really nice moment in the fit up. One of the things with the front of the boat was I wanted to keep it pretty clean, and for certain offshore purposes, I didn't need that front sounder and a transducer pole and all that. And I didn't want to have bases everywhere. So as part of my journey of getting this boat fitted out how I wanted, we were in the process of developing our dual mounts for our BLA Extreme mounts. And I was playing around with a few parts, and I realised that I could have a sounder on one, and then the base side of a D-ball ram on the other, and therefore have a sounder and a pole all coming down just to one mount on the boat. So by me going through that process, it enabled me to work out a new product, which people just love this product now, because it just keeps it nice and clean for those guys that want to keep a clean boat and not have multiple mounts all over the boat. So I think one of the great things about fitting up my own boat and being so involved in rebuilding boats and that my whole life, it works so well being in the product team where we're hands-on. We're not just sifting through brochures, international brochures, looking for products. We're actually building products and finding products to suit the market, because we're all passionate and we're all out on the water. So up the front, I went with a Minn Kota Tarova Quest, which is our brushless motor. So the Tarova Quest and the Instinct are basically the same motor. It's just the Instinct's auto stow and deploy. And I thought, well, I'm not that old yet. I can still get up the front and put the motor in and out. So I went with the Tarova Quest. It's a 72-inch shaft, and that's an absolute beast. It's actually, for guys that are looking at 72-inch or boats like this, they are so strong because they're engineered to handle 100-inch design on 35-foot offshore boats. So you put it on a boat like this and it's bulletproof. And that's one of the great things about the Tarova, the Quest platforms, is that they're just over-engineered, and people look at them and go, man, that's big, but it's solid and it won't break. So yeah, it's an absolute workhorse, and they're quickly gaining a really good reputation out in the water. So obviously evolution of live sonar. We had Mega Live 1 come out, and that was sort of our first toe in the water with live sonar technology. Mega Live 2 came out last year, and that's really been well received in our market. From our point of view, we didn't want to make too much of a song and dance about it. We wanted the market to decide what it was like, and we wanted anglers buying the product to let us know what it's like, and therefore let the market know what it's like. And the feedback that we get via people's social media and that is that they absolutely love the product, and we're really happy to be able to provide the best possible products to anglers that choose Humminbird. And we want to do that across all types, not only the mapping, side imaging, intuitive sort of functions, but Mega Live's obviously a big part of a lot of fishing in Australia, and it's great to have a product that we're really proud of and that anglers really enjoy. So the Humminbird mapping program started, it was one of the most secret programs we've ever had. It was myself and our general manager and our director of product knew about the project, and I ran the project in conjunction with the Humminbird mapping team in the US. And there's a lot to getting the data for mapping. There's obviously available data, government data, but then there's privately owned data that you can chase. And then from there, you've got to go and survey, because if the data's not good enough, we want to make sure we've got the best possible maps on the market. So we went out, we surveyed most of the dams, certainly all the most popular ones. We've got more that we've surveyed since our first release that will come out on second release. But Humminbird mapping, it's not a navigation, it's not designed for navigation, it's designed for fishermen. And you'll see with the functions of Humminbird mapping, whether it's Coastmaster or Lake Master, there's some things you can do in there that are beyond what people traditionally would use a map for, which is just navigation purposes. The contours are amazing. The detail, things like depth highlight. You know, you can be out snapper fishing and all the talk is a snapper in 17 meters. So you can just depth highlight that depth and it'll light up wherever you are fishing, it'll light up that depth. If you're in a dam, same scenario. I think Australia, maybe 10 years ago, really didn't have any mapping in the lakes and all that. And now we've got some unbelievable mapping that's just changing the way guys can fish. Be able to see underwater points and those sort of things and target those. And I think the combination of Lake Master or Coastmaster mapping and Mega Live has changed the way a lot of the barra guys fish impoundments and also the way cod guys fish the impoundments, being able to marry up, okay, this is an open water spot, this is where I need to fish, and now I've got Mega Live and I can find them and target them. The Minn Kota I'm running is it can be 24 volt or 36 volt, but I wanted to run 36 volt to maximize the power. One of the things I really wanted to do with this boat was I wanted to make it a 2-battery boat. So I've got a BLA Marine Performance lithium 36 volt battery to run the Minn Kota, and then I've got one of our hybrid crank batteries. So it's a lithium hybrid crank battery to run, obviously run the Mercury, but also run all my electronics. So that's a bit of a nervous moment because you sort of think, well, I'm running a 16-inch screen, a 12-inch screen, I might be running live wells and other things. Traditionally, if that was an AGM boat, there's no way you'd run a single battery for that sort of setup. One of the insurance policies with that though is our hybrid cranks have a jump start button, a jump start function built in. So even if I did happen to flatten it, I just go into the app, it'll say jump start, yes, confirm, and I start my motor, and then it'll sit at about 10% at that jump start position. And because it's lithium, it accepts charge so well. The Mercury motors have very good alternators. So once I'm up and going, I'm putting in 20, 30 amps straight back in, so it charges up very quickly. Lithium will take all the charge you can give it. So I've never had a problem. And even I'm running a 50 amp hour 36 volt battery, and I go to Malakuta for 3 weeks every year and I don't have any charging. So I'm running a DC to DC charger, one of our BLA Marine Performance DC-DC chargers, and that keeps my Minn Kota battery topped up, and I never have to plug in at home or shore power. It all just runs itself. So the way I set up the DC-DC, basically it comes with a positive negative wire coming out each side of the charger itself, and then obviously one goes to the motor, one goes to the battery. Then there's a yellow wire that comes out. Now that's your ignition wire. So basically when you turn your ignition on, then that charger will fire up, and it'll only run when your ignition on. But I wanted to add another step in that equation. I wanted to be able to still not have that DC-DC running, just in case my crank battery was low. I wanted to make sure all the charge was going there if I didn't need to top up my Minn Kota battery. So what I did is I just added a switch in there. So there's 2 ways you can do it. I added the switch via the positive coming from the motor to the charger. I added a little BLA switch. But the other way you can do it is the yellow wire. You can run that up to your switch panel onto a switch and then to your ignition. So even though you turn your ignition on, you can still choose whether you actually want to run that charger or not. My biggest problem with boats is I just love all types of boats so much, and as soon as I ever buy a boat, I'm always thinking of the next one, and I'm looking and I'm seeing what new boats are coming out and that sort of stuff. I absolutely love this boat though, and it fits in my garage too. My garage is 8 meters long and it fits in there, and it's only just over 2 meters rollador, So I've actually got the windscreen comes off and the windscreen rail folds down so I can get it in. If I was to do another one, I'd probably do another one of these, but maybe a dual console, because Jacqueline doesn't like getting wet. And so that might be the change. If I was to get another boat down the track, I might do the same boat in a dual console. That could be pretty cool. I went sort of different with my colour choice. So I went with grey. Grey's a real Victorian. Grey gel coat's a real Victorian sort of colour. But I went with the black gel coat under the hull. And then because I went with those dark colours, I wanted all the stainless to be black as well. So I got my mate Peter Marshall at Mafra Panel Works to Cerakote all the stainless work, which they use Cerakote. I did a lot of research. They use Cerakote a lot on guns and that sort of stuff, and it holds up really well. So Peter Cerakoted all the BLA stainless and the rails and everything I got done, which all rod holders, everything's black. And then the guys at Formasign, they did all the U-deck, so they were awesome. It was great working with them on the different colours and the patterns and that sort of stuff. And they did all that and fitted that, and that really lifts the boat. And I think that type of decking's for a boat that does a lot of different things. It's one of the best things that I did on the boat. So there's a pretty big shopping list that went into this boat, and if you're interested in any of the parts, just look in the description below and you'll be able to get access to all the parts that I used to suit your needs.